Well, hello there. Tomorrow, if you're listening to this on the day it comes out, is a Halloween. And so today is the Ambassador's first ever Halloween special episode. And I've got right here, whoa! Sorry, Justin, your Halloween costume scared me there, buddy. Where'd you get that mask from, bro? It's
so scary.
Yeah, it's terrifying. You got it off Amazon?
Yeah.
Sorry, you gave me a heart attack there, Justin. Could only be described, for those of you who are listening and not watching, it's only could be described as atrocious, disgusting, something.
I don't
from
like this bit.
The thing from the Goonies.
I don't like this.
Is that what you're going for?
I don't like this. Not a fan. Not my favorite.
Look, yeah, I thought we talked about how we don't celebrate Halloween, and you come dressed up as something on the Halloween special.
Sorry, I had to do something to surprise the fans.
Obviously dressed up as Tom Cruise.
You wish. hey, who do I look like? Hey, do I look like Tom Cruise?
No, never in my life.
Yeah, right.
Never in my life. I look like Johnny Depp. With acne.
That's what you said.
Yeah. Anyways.
Hey, lady. Hey, do I look like Johnny Depp?
I will slap you in person.
You said
I will slap you. Look, hey, if you keep doing
that,
I have a picture on my phone. I will show everyone right now if you keep doing that.
Yeah.
I will
show them the video where you coerce this poor woman into saying that you look like him.
Justin.
Oh, don't do it. No, sir. It's so bad.
Dude,
so
that is the best childhood picture of you. I need to post that on Instagram.
I don't like that picture. I don't like it.
I should make that the cover art for today's episode. Spooky episode. Picture of little. If people saw this, they would understand why your nickname is Downey J.
No, that was a spooky one. That is for sure.
Anyways, Halloween special. We talked a lot about Halloween last time, but we didn't actually talk about what, we talked about, okay, it's evil, it's bad, why would you celebrate it? And we came all these arguments with all the different kind of stuff. But now, I mean, it's spooky season. And so I want to talk about some spooky stuff because we live in a spooky world. And as Christians, the spooky world is real. And me and Justin have some fun.
Okay.
Me and Justin have some spooky. Me and Justin have some really cool theories that we're just going to unfold today. He'll know what I'm talking about when I bring him up.
Do we?
I
haven't heard these theories.
Yes, you have.
I bet I have.
But because look, here's the thing is, it's a real demonic thing that's going on. We could totally ignore it. But usually people on their podcasts talk about spooky stuff during this time of year. And I think those spooky things exist. And as Christians, we believe those things exist. So there's a whole wide range of things. But first, I asked Justin to do just a little bit of research. I did a little bit today too, but I know Justin's more analytical than me. I'm the dumb tradesman. He's the smart computer scientist. So I asked him to do a little research. And so let's talk a little bit of the research you did, Justin, about Halloween's origins.
Okay, well, sorry to disappoint, but okay.
Anything. I didn't ask him to do a deep dive. I just asked him to do some brief research. Okay.
Yes, for full clarity, Wikipedia generally isn't the best place to go for to go and assume that it's a primary source, right? But it's got a lot of links to good sources, so it's really good to scan and to kind of get a vague idea of what's going on, and then usually they link to more accurate resources that you can go double check. So I just scanned the Wikipedia page to kind of get a general feel for what Halloween is meant to do, where it came from, the traditions, where they came from, that kind of stuff. And it's a huge page. It's got 300 cited sources. It's massive. It goes through all sorts of different stuff. So obviously I wasn't going to do a deep dive on that, but I pulled out some interesting quotes. And the reason I said, sorry to disappoint is that it seems like Halloween comes from a bunch of different cultures and a bunch of different traditions that are all mixed together from all sorts of different backgrounds. It doesn't really seem like it's a event or a holiday that came from one specific source. So it's kind of hard to really point to specific things and say, oh, this means this and this means this. There's more digging and more research. And so I encourage, for those who are interested, you can go do that. I'm just going to bring like the super, super high level topics into it. Just to keep it not boring. Did you do any research? I can get into mine in a second.
Yeah, I did a little bit today. I listened to a few different podcasts. One of them was a Christian podcast of an witch. It was kind of her testimony. I didn't get too super far into it. She was being interviewed by an ex occultist who became a Christian. A really good podcast called Heaven and Healing. If you're interested in listening to it, I can get into that later. And then I also listened to this other person who was also like super pro into Halloween, and they were like, their whole podcast is about like creepy stuff. And so she was talking about like the history of Halloween, where it comes from. What she said was it comes from Ireland and Scotland, and that it came over to Americas. What was it like? It started out as like in the 7th century. It started out as like this holiday that was celebrated by the Celts, the Celtics. And then when they came to America, and I don't know, it was like 17 or 1600s. I mean, the 1700s when they brought it over, that specific group. I forgot the exact time period. Regardless, they brought it over, and the Catholic Church basically adopted it. There was other sources too that the Catholic Church had a very famous holiday that was called All Saints' Day on November 1st, which also happened to be the same day as this Celtic holiday and other pagan holidays. I mean, it's a autumn solstice kind of like harvest time year. Like that's when all these different people have different holidays. And as was pretty common with the Catholic Church, is they would take you conquer a nation or you convert a bunch of people, and you're like, all right, let's make them happy. We already have holidays that are somewhat similar, and so they combine a lot of certain traditions and practices while smacking Jesus' face over it. That was kind of the brief history I kind of got of it, is that it started out super pagan, came to America, got adopted by Catholics, and then kind of became like this more friendly, playful holiday on the surface level. But then we'll talk about more of the deeper level of it. But that's the two kind of brief summaries I got of it. Now you tell me yours.
Yeah. So some interesting things that I found were some of the traditions that happen on Halloween came from it just kind of seems like they came from random practices that people would do related to All Saints Day or All Hallows Day. I have a couple quotes here. So it basically seems like All Saints Day was meant to be a time of remembrance for the dead. It was kind of a solemn time to remember the saints that had passed on before. So it was originally a Christian holiday, Christian celebration. It says it basically stems from a belief that there's a powerful spiritual bond between the physical and spiritual realms. Sorry, I might have messed my words up. Let me restart. There's a powerful bond between physical and spiritual, and on certain times of the year, that bond becomes really weak. And so people basically believe, and this is through a lot of different cultures throughout the world and throughout many different time periods, believe that on certain days of the years, especially the solstices, the interaction between the realms would become very weak, and you would see more paranormal or more spiritual activity that would occur. And so All Hallows Day it's one day where there's something called All Hallow Tide, which is a period of 3 days. It's from October 31st to November 3rd. And All Hallows Day is just a single day within that time period. So All Hallow Tide is kind of like a longer celebration, if you will, or a longer time of remembrance as it was originally designed. And during this time, it was common for Christians to visit the graveyards of their loved ones in order to remember them. The families would often decorate the graves of the loved ones with flowers or candles or garlands. Don't know what that is, and they would also bring incense and do stuff. Kind of the feel of All Saints Day is a remembrance of the dead. It's kind of dark, kind of solemn, kind of depressing, but it's a time to remember the saints. So that's what I got from that one. I have a couple other things, but any thoughts?
I think garlands has something to do with like wreaths or something like that. There's a person I followed a while ago whose company was called Garlands of Grace, and they made head coverings. That was like their company, Garlands of Grace. I completely off. I just remember the picture being like leaves, and so I thought it has something to do with a wreath or something like that. Some kind of, what do you get for
Yeah.
garlands?
This says a garland is a decorative braid, knot, or wreath of flowers, leaves, or other materials.
Wow, that was the best guess of my entire lifetime.
They can be worn on the head, around the neck, hung on inanimate objects, or laid in the place of cultural or religious importance.
Man. Yeah. No, so I kind of really did minimal research on this. Um, so you can keep going. The only other thing I did want to say was about the first podcast, about the Heaven and Healings podcast. I think I've mentioned it before here, but this woman, she used to be and this will be a good caveat to other topics I want to talk about after this. She used to have the #1 new age podcast. Like before she was a Christian, she was into new age. She was a part of the occult, into Wiccan cards, into soothsayer, what do you call witchcraft, all that kind of stuff that had to do with like what's it called, psychics and stuff like that. So mediums. And so she was like, her podcast was the #1 in the world for that genre. Then she becomes a Christian and radically changes, gives her life to Christ. And now she has a podcast called Heaven and Healing, which exposes the dark worlds to that spiritual realm. And yeah, she is very much against Halloween because she knows the dark. Because she was part of that world that celebrated Halloween and knew the dark forces that were behind it. So keep going.
So the two main things I looked at were kind of this more, it seemed like Christian tradition side of things called All Saints Day. And then there was another one, which was a totally pagan religion, or pagan holiday called Samhain or Samhain. It's actually spelled Samhain. The pronunciation is completely different. It's like some Gaelic or something. And this was very similar. They believe that there's a boundary between this world and the other world that would get blurred on these solstice days. And so this actually was on, I believe it was on November 1st. It's practiced on November 1st, the day after All Hallows Day. And then people would bring down cattle or other livestock in a festival, and they would slaughter them, and then they would have food and drink offerings that they would give to try to, what's the word? Console the wandering spirits that were out and about on this day on November 1st. So there's some Christian influence, it seems like. There's also some pagan influence. There's a couple other pagan holidays that seem to have some sort of influence on Halloween. But there was a really interesting part of one of the Wikipedia pages that I was looking at where it talked about Wiccans and how it was Wiccans and one other group celebrate Samhain rather than Halloween. And there's some sort of much stronger religious importance to them for celebrating the day after Halloween than actually on the day of Halloween, although I'm sure many do both. But both holidays are kind of, especially Samhain, is kind of just a very dark, it's just got a dark aura. I don't know how else to say it, a dark presence, a dark feeling to the whole thing. So there's all of these complicated mixes. Two other things real quick. There was something called souling that people used to do where they would basically go door to door and sing for food. I didn't look too much into that. You can go look into that more if you want. There was also something called guising that people did where children would dress in costumes and they would go get snacks from people, apples or nuts or candy, or sometimes money. People would give them money if you went to a really rich house. So there's all of these things that are kind of mixed together. The last quote that I think I'll share is there's a Christian minister who had a quote, and he basically said, his name was Prince Sori Conte, and he was basically talking about this idea of vengeful ghosts, which is similar to what people were practicing with that holiday, Samhain, where he said, it was traditionally believed that the souls of the departed wandered the earth until All Saints' Day, and All Hallows' Eve provided one last chance for the dead to gain vengeance on their enemies before moving to the next world. in order to avoid being recognized by any soul that might be seeking such vengeance, people would don or put on masks or costumes. So basically, this Christian minister said there was these lost souls that were wandering the earth. They weren't in heaven, they weren't in hell. They were wandering the earth seeking vengeance. And this time period allowed them to actually get vengeance on the people that they were seeking vengeance from. And so people would dress up in these costumes to hide from the spirits, which makes, a whole lot of sense. But that's kind of a general summary of some of the stuff that goes into what we see as modern Halloween traditions and practices.
Yeah. And so here's now the good transition is that what is Halloween today? Because all these things in the past, right? Like these are all different traditions, right? I mean, look, we all participate in some kind of weird pagan traditions in some of our lives that even in America that we don't even realize, right? Like growing up, like even celebrating birthdays or having birthday candles on your like birthday cake. Like there's certain things we all do that, we don't even realize. There's even like gestures and social norms that have come from maybe a pagan culture or ways of greeting people that to us, obviously we could care less about the pagan influence.
Yeah, my cord got stuck. Sorry about that.
So, but here's the difference, right? The difference is, okay, so we have all these different ways in which Halloween could have been started. It seems like it's amalgamation, a huge like melting pot of different cultures, both Christian, pagan, coming and spilling together, and all these different practices and different what do you call traditions that come with the holiday. These charades and stuff like that. They seem pretty innocent, right? And in a lot of ways they are innocent. Even if you have the right mindset, but the bigger problem here is not that like, okay, like it has all these different, like, because you can use that same argument for Christmas, right? Like Christmas has pagan traditions tied to it. In its root, it's centered around Christ. And the way people ought to celebrate today is celebrating Jesus and his birth and the gift of God to creation. Like that should be the focus of it. And you can make an argument for celebrating Christmas because it's still a Christ-centered holiday, and even the parts of it that have pagan influence in them are still things that are positive, are still things that are drawing to the light. The bigger problem here now is with Halloween, even okay, you can make the argument, okay, there's some pagan influence on this holiday, some of it was rooted in Christian tradition, but what is it today? Is Christ advertised at all? When you take part in Halloween, when you're watching the movies, when you're playing the games, when you are reading the advertisements on TV, it's all demonic. It's all evil. It's supposed to be fear and terror and darkness, absence of light. It's literally gore, evil, messed up, darkest things you can. And those people who are really, really into it, those are the people that we consider hardcore. They watch some more hardcore horror movies that aren't just like thrillers that are just to scare you. They're usually filled with like unnecessary amounts of gore, like for the glorification of it, not for like the necessity of it. Like in a military movie, if someone gets shot, they're gonna bleed out. That's a necessity for the realization of what's trying to be portrayed by the story. But these ones, it usually has nothing really to do promote the story outside of just creating this environment that they want you to consume that is evil, that is dark, that is gory, that is gross, that is everything that is anti-light, everything that is the opposite of innocence. It usually has lots of nudity, very sexual stuff, soft porn, sometimes basically full-on porn in a lot of these horror movies. That's a common horror movie trope, is nudity or sexual stuff like that. And then oftentimes they're very demonic. The most famous series we can think of is The Exorcist, The Poltergeist, all these like demonic stuff that are sometimes telling real life demonic stories. And people aren't going to the theaters like they would to go see Saving Private Ryan. We're like, I'm going to watch this horrible thing, but it's it's somber and it's serious because I'm watching this because it's showing what people did for my freedom, or however you want to see it. Like there's a seriousness of what these men went through, and I'm not enjoying it. It's not glorifying the disgusting evil parts of it. I'm going here because it's actually trying to show me how horrible war was for these people. And it's taking the evil and it's putting on a pedestal, not of goodness, but it's putting it on this screen to show you like this is the evil exists and this is what these people went through. Can you believe it and have some respect for these people? Like that's the point of that type of gore you see in a movie. Where with these ones, it's literally just to promote and glorify sin and evil and darkness and gross and everything that is antichrist. And the traditions of Halloween, when you think about how Satan often comes down and to like the lowest levels, the most evil type of crimes that we can possibly think of are usually when innocence is corrupted. And the most innocent thing in the world, the most beautiful thing in the world are children, right? Because they're innocent. And it's kind of strange that like this whole holiday that is promoted as like ghosts, villains, vampires, blood-sucking demons, people turn into werewolves and rip people limb to limb, like zombies and like eat people alive. Like this horrible holidays, this horrible holiday is mainly celebrated by your children. Your kids are the ones that are advertised to the most, that are like the key. When you think of who celebrates Halloween the most, it's like, okay, adults, they go to their college buddy's house and get drunk, and women dress super scandalously, and men try to hook up with them. Like that's like a Halloween party. That's like, at least for our age group, in your young 20s, college age, right? Or it's either that or the main people who actually celebrate it are children who are going house to house doing trick or treat. Is the dressing up necessarily wrong? Is the getting candy necessarily wrong? No, I'm not. I can't say like, oh, that is full on demonic. Though people who have come out of that world, actual Luciferian cult people, satanic cult people, occultists, people who are into witchcraft, which to you guys might sound crazy, but to me and Justin, who live in Colorado, I know people like that who are still in there, who do witchcraft, who like, I mean, I had a girl in high school tell me she was going to cast spells on me, and she was being dead serious because she liked me and I was a Christian and I wasn't trying to be in a relationship. And so she was like, I'm going to like ask a demon to like force you to fall in love with me. I've experienced whack stuff like that. I've had a boss who was like the head of a Wiccan, a witch. He was the high priest of a witch church, like 20 minutes from my house. This world exists. There's people, whether you think it's real or not, there's people who actually devote themselves to that. And these people who have come out of that, thank God, and become Christians, they say, this is like the number one time of year, like Justin was saying, where they believe that the spiritual world and the physical world, the veil between them is very thin, and there can be this crossover, and that's where all these satanic rituals happen. That's where people are like praying over praying over candy, which to you might sound so dumb, but would you want to take candy from someone who believes in Satan and does blood sacrifices with people's animals or cats or whatever it is, or rats and stuff, drink blood and do these like demonic rituals over this candy? Like, you want your kids taking that? They're praying the demonic influences, things that they want for power, doing dark magic and light magic, but still all witchcraft, and it's all evil and satanic. And so you have this huge, and then it's also the number one year for human sacrifices, the number one time of year that people are sacrificed. Homeless people just being picked up off the streets, and no one cares because no one really knows they're gone. Like, this is not trust me, bro, logic. These are people who have come out and said this stuff has happened. And as Justin mentioned in the last podcast, the guy who founded the Church of Satan, what's his name, Justin? Something Leclerc?
Anton LaVey.
Anton LaVey, sorry. As Anton LaVey said, who started the Church of Satan, nothing makes him more happier than Christian parents letting their kids celebrate what many people call Satan's birthday. Now, I might be preaching to the choir to some of our listeners here, and some of you guys might agree with all this stuff, but this is like a warning. This is like real demonic evil stuff that's happening. People, I know people who baptized their wedding rings in blood and got baptized on Halloween. Like that was like like they're so into this. They have Halloween decorations year round. That's like their thing.
Well,
their
that's
personality.
just gothic.
Huh?
That's just gothic, right? Just an obsession with dead and with darkness and death and all, gore and that kind of stuff.
And here's the funny thing too about it. Like this is how I kind of see it. I need to figure out how to frame this correctly because I was thinking about this on the way home about like, oh, it's so innocent. It's people need to realize, like, sure, there's an innocent picture that you see when you have your kids doing this dress up and getting candy, even though they're literally participating in a holiday that promotes only evil. it's just complete negligence. It's like turning a blind eye to all the evil, disgusting, weird stuff. It's like, yeah, my kid's getting candy, but as he's walking up to this person's house, he's passing Halloween decorations of decapitated people with their guts in their hands, or giant spiders that are supposed to like resemble creepy, dark, gross, evil, like nastiness. And it's just like, you don't think you're going to have a little bit of demonic influence come into your life? Yeah, I mean, if you're a Christian and you believe the spiritual world is real, and you believe that doing demonic things or listening to demonic music or getting drunk or smoking all whatever kind of drugs that influence your DMT mind or whatever type of hallucinogenics or mushrooms, any of these psychedelics, you feel like I'm opening myself up to the spiritual world. Like, if you listen to a song that was praising Satan, don't you think you're kind of opening up a little bit of a spiritual connection between demonic stuff? Like, there's a little bit of influence invitation in there. Like, you play with a Ouija board, like you're kind of like talking to ghosts, you're inviting them to have an influence in your life. Like, these are things real people have gone through who've done these things, and some of their lives have been completely ruined. One of the number one YouTube ghost hunter channels I just saw the other day just posted a video about talking about how he just became a Christian, and he talked about how all this ghost hunting he did, he believes he was encountering demons. So much of his life got ruined. Super successful guy on YouTube, but so many evil, horrible things started happening in his life because he was actively participating in demonic things. Once a year, when that demonic influence is number one, is like at its height, the antenna's going off like crazy, you're sending your kids into spiritual warfare that they're not prepared for, they know nothing about, and you're just like, all right, go as Superman. And heck, sometimes you guys are dressing your kids up as the devil. I remember kids in elementary school during those parades, like Justin was talking about, with scream masks from that horror movie, and you would press a button, and there would be a tube of blood, and it would like the mask would like fill up with blood, or they'd come to school as like Jason from Friday the 13th, or all these other like Michael Myers, and all these other like weird, disgusting Michael Myers. It's not is it Michael Myers?
Yeah, I think so.
So I think Michael
The
Myers.
chainsaw killer guy?
Chainsaw guy. Yeah.
All the weird serial killers.
But what I'm trying to get at here is like the negligence to put your kid in that. It's the negligence to it is like you're it might not be having immediate effects, but what are you, as because I'm talking to Christians here, what effects do you think this is going to have long term on your kid? Like, this to me is like the equivalent, and maybe this is extreme, but this is the equivalent of like you're in a cool neighborhood, you have like a tight knit group, and you just got that one weird neighbor that's kind of elderly dude who just likes to sniff kids. You know, he's a little bit of a sniffer. And you're like, oh, it's innocent, you know, like he's just an old guy. He's a friendly kid. He likes to do a little bit of Joe Biding on his free time, you know, just a little sniff. It's a little hug. It's an American Southern thing, you know, it's just he's expressing his like love for kids. He hugs them, gets a little sniff in there. And you just let it keep on going on. And then everyone acts surprised and shocked when little Jimmy gets touched 20, months down the road or whatever. And it's like, you didn't see the signs of like, hey, maybe letting my kids around the sniffer, even though it's innocent, oh, whatever, he's handing him candies, seems like a chill guy, he was in the military his whole life, like, come up with whatever excuse. And maybe this is the worst comparison in the world, but when I think of negligence and I think of children, that's the first thing that comes to my mind, is like people who, because I've known people like this who have been molested or touched as kids by friends, neighbors, people like that, and they tell me my parents were just so dumb, like they didn't see the signs that were kind of obvious, or they didn't want to see the signs, right? That's what I see with Halloween. And some people are like, Johnny, that's such a huge, disgusting, weird comparison you'd make to say that this physical interaction and happy people, or these kids, or whatever, going through that stuff is the same as people letting their kids celebrate Halloween. I'm saying it's negligence and it's irresponsible, because your kid's spiritual life and your spiritual life are just as important as their physical well-being. I'm not saying one is worse than the other. I'm saying both are putting your kids in danger. And we just turn our blind eye to you because it's socially acceptable to. So it's socially acceptable. It's like in school systems now where boys are allowed to go in girls' bathrooms.
Yeah.
Like,
so
I know some boys in middle school who wanted to go in the girls' bathrooms, and it wasn't because they thought they were a girl. And some girls are going to get affected /touched /hurt because of stupid negligence, because people don't want to seem like the bad guy. They don't want to stand out and say, hey, maybe don't let boys go in the girls' bathrooms. And that's how children are hurt. And I just see that as blaring. When you got children involved, Satan should be the first thing that pops in your mind, like, oh, someone's trying to corrupt kids' innocence. That's from Satan.
Yeah.
That's not from Jesus.
So there's a lot there, right? I just want to slow down a little bit. And I had a couple miscellaneous comments, but when you're talking about, blood offering, blood sacrifice, it sounds, like you said, it sounds very strange for people that aren't super aware of it or super familiar with it. It's just weird how small of a population does that, whatever. I just want to point people to a very famous actress and a very famous artist. I don't know. I don't even know what he is, but Megan Fox and Machine Gun Kelly are these two famous people, and they just came out. There's many clips of them around circulating on the internet where she talks about how that they would just drink each other's blood, and they would he would cut himself and just, yeah, they would drink each other's blood. So it's weird, it's crazy, it's disgusting, it doesn't make any sense, and it also still happens. And very famous, very famous, powerful, influential people are doing it, and they're talking about it. So how many other people are just doing it in their free time, not really wanting to say it because it is weird. It's gross, it's disgusting, it's strange, it's demonic, all of those things. So a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about so far is weird. It sounds unbelievable. It sounds like it's just not something that you would even care to look into. But that doesn't make it false, right? That doesn't make it untrue. And so you have to look into it yourself if you care, which I think everybody should. And obviously, as Johnny mentioned last week, most Christian parents probably aren't, dressing their kids up as some sort of serial killer or some sort of like the devil or something like that, right? They're dressing their kids up in these little cute costumes, whatever. I still think that's a bad idea, which I can get into in a second. But my challenge to anybody, any Christian who believes that Halloween is perfectly acceptable to celebrate, do it 1 week earlier. Have everybody in your Christian circles who's interested in doing it, do it a week earlier or a week later, right? If there's any hesitation, if there's anything inside of you that's like, oh, but wait. Okay, well, then you're attracted more to the day itself than the fact that there's costumes or than the fact that there's candy, right? We can go down a rabbit hole of what is okay, what's not. I'm not really interested in doing that because at the end of the day, if you're not willing to do the exact same thing just on a different day, then that kind of shows your cards, right? You've showed the hand that you're holding. So think about that, whether it's, Christmas too, or Halloween, or literally any holiday. If the only reason that you're celebrating it is because the rest of the world is celebrating it on that day, then you should really take a second to stop and think about your motivations for doing it, right?
I do want to point out one word you said there. Celebrate.
Okay.
You're celebrating something. What are you celebrating on Christmas? You're celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world. What are you celebrating on Easter? The resurrection of Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world. What are you celebrating on Satan? Celebrating
Darkness.
Satan, you're celebrating darkness, you're celebrating evil, the opposite of the light. What doth light have to do with darkness? Be a light set on a hill. That's what Christ says. Don't hide it under a bushel. What is Halloween doing? It's not promoting the light. It's promoting the darkness. It's promoting evil, gore, sexuality, disgusting, evil, corrupt, whatever. And sometimes it's not even the fake demonic stuff. Sometimes it's the real demonic stuff. And I'm talking about, like, sometimes it's not the vampires and the wolves, the werewolves. Sometimes it's the serial killers, the Ted Bundys, the Jeffrey Dahmers. Like, those things are celebrated this time of year. People dressing up as that psychopathic. Like, those are real demons. Those are people that had real demons in them.
Yeah, real demonic possession. So that, I was just about to get there, actually, so it was kind of perfect. But I had two main questions coming into this podcast that I wanted to talk to you about. One was, what is the biblical focus on light versus darkness, right? we talked about this it was 5 episodes in a row or something of just the light versus the dark. There is no darkness when it comes to God, right? I had some verses pulled up. I don't exactly know if we need to read them. I'll just read one real quick. But when he's talking about Christians, he says in Ephesians 5:8, "For ye were sometimes darkness, but now are ye light in the Lord. Walk as children of light." So we've gone through many episodes, and you can go read the New Testament, and I'm sure the Old Testament. Everywhere you look is this idea of light versus darkness, and how the light is the one that Christians should abide in, or live in, or walk in, or surround themselves in. And what is Halloween? You, after work, you wait till it's dark, and then you go get dressed up, and you go out, and you go do all of these things in the darkness. The sentiment of Halloween, what you're celebrating, is death. It's darkness. It's morbid. All of these things, to me, are quite literally anti-Christ, because it is not focusing on the light of the gospel or the life that salvation brings, spiritual life. It's a complete focus on 100%, 180 degrees opposite of what Christ came to teach and what he came to bring to mankind. So I literally do think Halloween, by nature, is antichrist, because it glorifies things that are exactly opposite of Christ.
Yeah. Imagine if Halloween was, for those people who say, oh, it's originally a Christian holiday. Shut up. Imagine if Halloween was like legit Christian. You know what it would look like? It would be like we go around house to house collecting candy, sharing Bible verses, or singing carols, like caroling like you do at Christmas. And then you would have church services where you preach about whatever aspect of the year. It could have been, I don't know, choose the marriage feast or the first miracle of Christ. Like it would be something focused about Jesus, and that would be the focus. And the traditions in the house, like whether it's a Christmas tree that some people say represents the Trinity or whatever it is, right? Like you would have things like that that are all pointing back to Christ. You have none of that with Christianity. In fact, the only none of that in Halloween. The only aspect of Halloween that has a Christian influence is actually a negative Christian influence. It has to do with Catholic idea of ancestral prayer, which is ancestral worship, which is a pagan practice adopted by the Catholic Church. So even the quote unquote Christian roots of Halloween are not actually Christian. They're actually still kind of derived in like unbiblical practice. That's a Catholic practice.
So it's actually two. It could be the ancestral prayer or
Well, the
ancestral
All
worship.
Saints Day, where they're going back and they're thinking, oh, and that's like how Catholics view saints or those who've been deceased. And
Yeah. So in my research, there's this idea of purgatory was kind of popular in the roots of All Hallows Day, where they were remembering. Actually, I'm kind of mixing two ideas, but they're both related, right? There's this Catholic idea about praying for the dead, which is not something that Protestants believe. I absolutely do not believe it. So that you can argue as Christian roots, I would argue it's just wrong, right? So it doesn't count.
wrong.
Scratch that from the record. But then also, I found one other quote that I forgot to bring up. This one is kind of interesting, but it's talking about what jack-o'-lanterns were regarded as, or maybe this is folklore or whatever, but it says the tradition associated with souling, which is going around and getting food after you sing at people's houses, associated with souling included solars visiting houses with hollowed out turnip lanterns with a candle inside, which represented a soul trapped in purgatory. Purgatory is also something that Protestants do not believe, and maybe we can get into those two concepts in a later episode, but that was actually kind of related to my other question that I was going to ask you later. So
One thing I would say when I was doing my research as well, the lady that was doing the history of Halloween, she was talking about part of that other holiday you're talking about, the one that starts with an S, that's like spelled kind of weird in Gaelic or whatever.
Samhain.
She said that it was also common practice. People would cut open they would hollow out vegetables and light candles inside there as a way to like ward off spirits or to like let ghosts be free or something with the spiritual world. So it is like just a melting pot of like, oh, this tradition had this similar kind of practice of putting candles inside of vegetables and lighting them up. let's turn it into whatever a practice. But so what's your third question?
I kind of would like to get to it. I don't know if we're gonna have good answers. It's something I haven't really researched enough, so I don't know if I'll have a very strong opinion. But I kind of want to come back to it because it departs a little bit from Halloween, and it's just a kind of general question about Christians. So if you have anything else, I wanted to let you finish with that or keep going with that.
Well, the other things that I kind of wanted to talk about today that were a little spooky, and Justin, like these spooky topics that we talk about throughout the year, give you a little spook. Sorry, it just rolls off the tongue. Is this idea of, because we've mentioned this before, we've kind of like poked it and like kind of mentioned it to you guys, but we haven't actually really like deep dived into what deep dive. I'm dyslexic in speech, Justin. I haven't deep dived. We haven't actually deep dived into the conversation. Is things like cryptids, like skinwalkers, Bigfoot, Wendigos, basically like Native American lore that kind of pertains to us who live in Colorado. If you haven't heard of the Blurry's Creatures podcast, it's a podcast that me and Justin listen to every once in a while, like kind of rarely. I listen to it maybe more frequently than Justin. He's the one that got me onto it. And it all started one fateful day when he sent me this really interesting podcast. There was two Navajo. It was the first one he ever sent me that got me onto the Blurry Creatures. Two Navajo, which is a Native American tribe who lived in, was kind of in the West, but mainly in Colorado, or a big part of it was Colorado. These were Christians. And there's actually a pretty decent group of Native Americans that are Christians that still kind of are tied to their Native American ancestry and kind of practices and beliefs.
And legends.
And religions, yeah. So
legends.
Legends,
their
yeah.
stories of
Yes,
stories
yeah.
from their ancestors.
Sorry. Which comes through their like religion, right? And so these two is a husband and a wife, and they were just talking to this podcast called Blurry Creatures, this Christian podcast where they talk about things like whatever, these like UFOs, Bigfoot, all these like things like, are these things real? People have experienced them, but how do we look at them through a Christian perspective? And I never really thought about, like, I always wouldn't want to, I always denied Bigfoot existed, because if he did exist, or if we ever ended up finding him, I was like, well, that would be like the missing link between the Neanderthal and, or monkeys and the Neanderthal, right? So it'd be kind of like anti-biblical, and it just sounds so goofy. But then when I heard this kind of, what do you call, perspective of it, which is not the only reason I didn't believe in it. I was always like, okay, maybe he exists, but if he does exist, it's just like whatever. You live in Colorado, you hear lots about different sightings. Their perspective was like, there's a lot of Native American lore about this beast, and a lot of like the things of their lore kind of line up with like the Nephilim in the Bible. And so a lot of these Native American Christians, they believe that these cryptid creatures are actually demonic beings, or like people who've given themselves over to demonic purposes for power, like a skinwalker. A skinwalker is basically a witch that makes a deal with a demonic entity, and that demonic entity, in exchange for her soul, basically, or his soul, gives them the power to all sorts of different magic powers, and one of the main ones is like they shapeshift. And so like that's kind of like, you see a skinwalker, it's usually going to be like in the woods, calling to you, mimicking a voice of someone you know, or like mimicking an animal's voice, trying to lure you into the woods. They won't even use the word skinwalker. That's how much like they believe in it, because they think they're such a powerful entity and not to be messed with. Same thing with Bigfoot. It's this giant being. Also Nephilim, it has like all sorts of different, maybe like powers, or maybe it's just a hairy giant, an Esau kind of like hairy, but just, so that's kind of like the theory that these things are all spiritual and demonic, and that's where they really come from, and they actually can be supported by scripture. The coolest thing from that podcast that I heard,
maybe I want to butt in here real quick, right? This is a very big topic with all sorts of different pathways to go down. There are so many rabbit holes. It's really interesting to listen to if you're kind of bored and you just want to listen to all this stuff. But again, just to slow it down a little bit, the way I look at it is, Bigfoot, is it real or not? I'm not really sure. I could be convinced either way on any day, right? Give me different perspectives. I could be convinced either way, probably. To me, it doesn't really matter that much. But when I look at things in the Bible, like the giants that were found created in Genesis 6, like Goliath, who was he was over 9 feet tall, had a completely different frame, a different, bone density and muscle structure and everything than normal humans. Um, it's clear that there was at least some humanoids, the giants. So it's not unrealistic to say that there could be others. Do I know which ones they are? Not exactly. But the general way that I understand all paranormal activity, so anything UFO related, anything ghost related, anything with cryptids, I assume is some sort of it's some part of the spiritual realm with demonic activity. Are they actual literal physical creatures? Maybe, not 100% sure. That's up to you guys to decide as well if you go listen to those things. But regardless of whether they're real or just, imaginations put in your head or whatever it may be, it's definitely demonic.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at it.
There's a few guys in a church that say they saw some while backpacking. Like they are convinced while they're backpacking. I don't know how much I believe it. I mean,
Yes.
I've heard so many. I'm kind of the same as Justin, where I can go either way, but if I do see it, I know it's going to be a demon, and I'm not gonna be nice to it. It's going down. I have some slugs. Anyways, what I was gonna say was my
You're
favorite.
gonna die.
My huh?
You're gonna die.
Not if I put some holy water on it. My favorite,
Good
what do you
luck.
call, story from that Blurry Creatures episode with those two Christian Navajo Native Americans was they said there's this ancient tradition and of basically a great spirit coming across the waters, like over the sea and over the ocean, and traveling. And this was around 2,000 years ago, traveling all the way over the water and bringing this message to the people, and like this vision telling them that the most powerful and most magnificent and most amazing, like beautiful king has just entered Earth, had just been born. And so these Navajos, like before, like that tradition, before Christianity ever came to America, they just always, whatever, it was just part of their tradition. Some king was born, they would ever, they never really understood it. Um, and then they obviously believe that was like some angel just telling them like Christ is like this announcement. There was like this similar to the shepherds. Like that's crazy. That is that a
Well,
coincidence?
there was a little bit, there's more to it than that, right? So it was at Christ's birth, this spirit came across the great waters, as it was described. It came across the great waters to tell these natives about these lands with many people in them and how a great king was born. And then decades later, about 30 years later, there was another spirit that came back and was sadly proclaiming that they have killed the king. They have killed the king. The king is dead. So it was both his birth and his death, and there may have been something else to it as well. I forget exactly how much, like what the spirit in the story told the people, but it's very clear that these Navajos, thousands of years later, attribute the story to being about Christ. And from their stories, from their legends, this knowledge was passed on to them from a spiritual being that just came out of nowhere. Super interesting
It's
stuff.
super interesting. The next thing I also wanted to ask was, and I want you to tell your dad's story a little bit, but have you ever experienced demonic dreams? Now we're getting to a little bit of like sleep paralysis here and demonic encounters and dreams. Now we're going away from like playful could or couldn't be demonics to straight up demons.
So I've never experienced a full on demonic dream. I've had one
Or
experience in
any
my
ghost
life,
stories,
or maybe two.
any like demonic ghost stories or anything like you ever had. It could have been exploring an abandoned place or anything like that.
So not exactly, but I've had two instances where I'm falling asleep and I just feel this super dark presence. It's really hard to describe, but it feels like it's like a blanket is covering every inch of your body, except it's a weighted blanket. And it just like, instead of being heavy where your muscles can't move, it just feels dark and oppressive and evil. It's super, super
Can I
weird.
tell you how
And
I explain it? I describe it as the air is humid with evil. It's
Kind
heavy and
of.
humid. The air is heavy and humid. You know what's super
It's like
humid?
oppressive.
Yeah, you know
Yeah.
when it's super humid and you almost start feeling groggy and heavy? It's like, but instead of water, it's like evil. You have to experience it to understand it, but the best way I can describe it is the air is humid with evil and darkness.
Yeah, so that's happened to me twice, and the first time it happened, I was totally freaking out. I was a believer both times that it happened, and I was totally freaking out. I was like hiding under the covers and just praying, God, make it go away, right? And then the second time, I forced myself to open my eyes and come out from the covers and look around, and thank God nothing was there. But both times I'm just sitting there praying for minutes. I think the first time I prayed for like 15 minutes, and then it slowly started to fade away. But it's strange because this almost never happens to me. And it's not like I remember having a bad day, or it's not like I watched a horror movie or some weird stuff like that. It was just kind of a normal day, and I was going to bed, and then all of a sudden there was just this. It's kind of like when you're in the woods. I don't know if many of you go out in the woods, but it's like you're being watched. There's something watching you, but you're in your dark room. It's terrifying. But that's the only story I have personally.
Tell your dad's story.
Okay, so I don't know if you want me saying this, but I'm going to say it anyways. He he became a Christian after this, actually. This kind of kicked him into. Oh, no, that's not exactly true. So he had um kind of put off his faith until I think he was about 27 or 29 or something like that. And then he started repenting and he started changing his life, and he was trying to um, make his relationship with his parents better. And so I think he had gotten through a significant period of repentance and restitution. And for some reason, he was at his dad's house, my grandfather's house. And my dad believes it was kind of one of Satan's last, like, attempts at getting him to stay or something like that. But basically, what happened was he was at my grandfather's house, and he was in a guest room, and he was trying to fall asleep, and it was really hot out. There was no AC. So my dad opened the window to try to get a breeze. And then he went back and he laid down and he was trying to fall asleep. And he said he noticed something in the window, and he looks up and he sees something coming through the open window. And he said it literally looked like a Grim Reaper. It didn't have a scythe, but it literally looked like a Grim Reaper with these red eyes. And he said it came up and it grabbed him by the throat and pinned him against the bed. And it was holding him there, just staring at him with its eyes. And he was just like praying out to God, crying out to God to make it go away and to protect him and keep him safe. And similar with my dad, it was about 15 minutes or 10 minutes or something like that, 10 minutes later, where through his prayers, I don't think he was even able to verbally say them. I think they were just through his thoughts and through his meditation towards God. But after that, the spirit kind of just left. It finished grabbing onto his neck, and then it just went right back out the window. And I don't remember if it said anything to him or not, but that was his experience. It was kind of like mine, but much more real to him.
Sketchy.
Very.
God save him though. And that's
Thank God.
my experience too. So my family, I don't know if it's in the Petrovic genes. I don't know if we got a little gypsy in us through some part of my family. But for whatever reason, quite
You
a
got a lot of them, pal.
hey, listen, all right, I'll sell you to the gypsies. A lot of people in my family, extended kind of more in my extended family and some of my immediate family, seem to be more sensitive. I don't know if it's a blood thing. Just some people are more, and some bloodlines or families are more sensitive to the spiritual world than others. Excuse me. And so I've had cousins of all sorts of experiences, a lot of them having like sleep paralysis, which you could just diagnose as a medical issue. One of my cousins, he'd always like before he was converted, he would listen to like death metal all the time, like satanic death metal, like Black Sabbath, and like that kind of messed up. Like that's not necessarily death metal, that's just more metal. But there are like he would listen to like the crazy, weird, freaky stuff, and he would have like dreams, or he would have like sleep paralysis with like demonic entities in his room like all the time. He'd have ones where there was like there'd be no entity, but he'd just wake up and there'd just be like voices screaming around him, like in a dark, deep, low demonic voice, like grumbling in a language that he can't understand, and like cymbals crashing in his ears. And he says they'd go away once he started using the name of Jesus. I have another cousin that had demonic experiences like that and other things. It seems to be a family thing. I've had lots of them. Over the years, it has been a long time since I've had them, but especially when I was unconverted and when I was seeking the beginning of my like Christian walk with God, very demonic dreams. Not a lot of times dreams. When I was really little, I'd have lots of demonic dreams, but then they started becoming like I was awake and demonic entities in my room when I was sleeping, and a lot of them would just be basically, here's how I would explain it. It's very similar to what Justin said. I'd wake up and you would feel the air would be so humid with evil. The feeling I best explain it, it's like a predator and a prey, where the prey can sense that the predator is not just watching it, but that it has the intent to kill. I don't know how else to explain it. It feels like not only there are eyes in the back of my head or there's something staring at me right now, but it wants me dead. Like it has this vicious intent to harm me bad to the point of death. And so I wake up and I just feel this intent to kill me and this huge humid darkness and evil in the air. And when I was younger, I would be kind of paralyzed. I wouldn't see anything in the room, but I would be like, I would just feel it, and I wouldn't be like completely paralyzed. Like I could move a little bit. The second I would touch my Bible, because I always sleep with the Bible on my bed, the second I touch my Bible, it would go away, or use Jesus' name. I would say a few times and it would go away. And I would be like drenched in sweat, terrified, like something just almost got me. And then when I would have dreams, I would actually be able to see the figure. It became so common for me that I was growing more in my faith and getting confidence in Jesus, that I just started viewing it differently. I was like, I'm a soldier of Christ. And so I would start mocking it. And so there would be times where like I can actually feel it. It's like lucid dreaming almost, like half awake, half asleep. I feel the entity in my room, like standing right there. And I'd be like half paralyzed, and I'd have such a will to kill this thing. Like I thought in my mind, I was not human. I have no problem. I'm going to murder you. And so I would like force myself, like I would actually be moving almost like slow motion, like someone's holding me tight or whatever, holding me down. And I would just start laughing. And I'm like, you're going to hell. I said, there's nothing you can do to me. You're already damned. I'm saved. I love Jesus. He's protecting me. And I would look at it as like, what are you? Were you just here to look at me and to get me scared? Well, you can't do anything unless God wants you to do something to me. And if you do, okay, that's God's will. It sucks. I'll go through it. But what do you know what I'm saying? So I would look at it as like, oh yeah, you're in God's territory now. Get over here. And I would start marching towards it, and it would usually go away. It would disappear. But there was one time where like I got up to it, where I was like looking in the eyes, and I will be honest, I was terrified. Sometimes I was so excited because it was like an opportunity to like kill a demon. I know this sounds psycho to a lot of you guys, but that's just how I think. And I'm like, this is kind of cool. Like I'm angry, and it's like, this thing's evil. Jesus hates this thing, so it's okay for me to. It's not a human being. I went towards a human. Love every human, even my enemies. But this is a non-human entity, so it's fair game. It's fair game for me to murder this sucker and send him straight to hell. And I would tell it, go to hell. That's what I'd tell this thing. I said, you're going to the lake of fire. Anyways, so and one time I got like eye to eye close with this dark entity, and no, ew, disgusting.
I bet you did, you little weirdo.
It's not weird, dude. I want to kill demons. This is the coolest thing. Imagine if that was your job, killing demons. Anyways, and then the dream ended or whatever. But a lot of times it would like the first chunk of it would be terrifying, and then I'd have to talk myself through it. I'd have to quote scripture, and I have to like remind myself, just like with temptation, use scripture so I don't sin against God, and also to remember who I am in Christ. The craziest encounter I had, and this is one that actually changed my life. Oh, and by the way, I sleep with a Bible now all the time. I cuddle with a Bible like it's my snuggle buddy. Because those dreams happen, and ever since I started doing that, I haven't had any of those dreams. It's actually like
Interesting.
It's interesting. I know some people whatever think is all loony, crazy stuff, but like this is my experience. I'm not saying it won't happen again. Maybe got to let it happen. I mean, I have to be completely trusting in the Lord that He takes care of me even in those moments. But He's been faithful to me ever since. And sometimes they are pretty bad. I've been tortured a lot in my dreams where I can physically feel it, and I wake up with like pain in my body. Um, that was a lot when I was a non-member. And this specific instance is actually a big part of my testimony. Whenever people ask my testimony, I always tell them this is a big part of it, but it's a small as far as like things I mentioned because I'm a professional yapper. Anyways, in this moment, it's after Eastern camp. I've been seeking for like basically 8 years. I started when I was 11. I was 17 at this moment. Just got out of this like situationship with this girl. Not that we had like done anything or anything like that. She was the girl that wanted me to like her and was casting demonic things on me because she wanted me to like her. And I told her no or whatever. It's a whole long story. And it was like, I basically had told her that year, like, look, I've only wanted to be your friend this whole time. Just be my friend. And I kind of ended it that summer because it's like, I'm going to Eastern camp, you know, I got to be holy. I got to act like a Christian there. I can't be like talking to this girl at the same time. Go there after camp. Didn't have the greatest year. Hypocrite, you know. And it's after camp now. I'm sleeping in my brother-in-law's house in the basement. Everyone is upstairs in this room by myself. The room has a doorway. My feet are facing the doorway because my bed is a long ways facing the doorway. To the right of me is another bed. It's 2 bunk beds, and the bunk bed is like sideways, whatever, kind of like this. I'm in this bed, and here's the other bed next to me, and the doorway's right in front of me where you are. Anyways, I wake up in the middle of the night, and there is a shadowy figure standing in the doorway. And this is real. Like, to me, this is not a dream. This is not a vision. This is the most real thing. Vivid, not lucid dreaming. I mean, like, real. Just as real as I feel awake right now, even though I'm exhausted. And I see the shadowy figure. The best way I can explain is it looks like Sauron from Lord of the Rings with this evil, like just a but instead of any, I can't see any distinguishing features outside the fact that it has a dark crown and it's completely shadow. Just shadow is spilling out from it. Like an actual like mist or smoke. Like this thing is just pure darkness standing there. And the air is thick with that humidity. Like I'm sweating within an instant. This thing wants to kill me. This is so real to me that I start screaming for my brother-in-law, David. I start yelling his name because I don't think demon. I think someone's in the house and they want to kill us. Like I was so certain this was real. I thought there was an intruder. Anyways, I end up just out of instinct just jumping out underneath and crawling underneath the other bed. Don't know why I did that, but that's what I did. Just trying to get away from this thing because to me, I'm
Hide like a little girl.
Yeah, bro. I'm sorry. Like I was like pushing myself away from like the darkness.
I like being mean to demons.
Listen, this was before all of that. This was like when I was a non-member. So this is like, let me finish my story. This is important. This is a part of my testimony. Stop mocking me, okay?
Fine.
This happened.
Should have give him a big ol' hug.
Better. Anyways, so I'm like pushing myself away from the demon. Because remember, at this point, like I'm like half in the world. I'm sitting on the fence of salvation. Half in the world, half in the kingdom, which really means I was fully in the world. So I'm like trying to get away from this darkness. That's how I was jumping out underneath that. Like didn't have Christ in my heart fully. This is where I was at. Jump underneath the bed. This demon, whatever it is, the shadowy prince king figure of darkness comes over and grabs me by my left wrist and holds me up in front of its face. And now I'm paralyzed because I'm just in so much fear. And this thing is holding me up by one arm, my left arm, my wrist, and he's looking me directly in the face with this like sense of like basically this thing's gonna kill me. This thing hates me, and I'm like choking on my words, trying to scream for David. And as he's doing that, as he's holding me up, looking at me, I slowly look over his shoulder, and standing behind him in the doorway is the exact same figure, except instead of darkness, it's complete light, like a golden light, pure gold light. And the second I see that figure, I think Jesus, and I boom, wake up in my bed in the exact same stance I was in. Drop on my knees, pray to God instantly. I'm like shaking at this moment, and I'm drenched in sweat. Like I literally, this just happened. And I start begging the Lord. I just remember I asked God, what does this mean? Because this wasn't like I've had weird dreams before with flying monkeys and all sorts of weird stuff. Like this wasn't like I was like drunk or something kind of dream. This was like or like whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like I ate a bad sandwich. This was like real. There was no weird side stuff. Everything was to the point and real. And so I fall on my knees. I'm like, God, what does this mean? And immediately, one of my favorite songs, favorite artist, Keith Green, one of his lyrics come up to me and it says, "You're so proud of calling yourself a seeker, then why are you searching in the dark?" And that was God trying to tell me that, hey, Satan still has his grip on you. That's basically what I heard God say. Choose this day whom you will serve, because you've been seeking me for so long. Make up your mind. God was saying, make up your mind, get off the fence. I've been calling you forever. This is pathetic, basically. Or like, I'm calling you, like God giving me stern, like, you know better than this. And you have things to do for me in my kingdom. Stop riding the fence. You're so proud of calling yourself a seeker. Why are you searching in the dark? Satan still has his grip on you. That's what God was telling me. And I kid you not, for 3 days, 24/7, 24/3, for 3 days after that experience, from night to day, I felt a man's hand wrapped around my left hand. Like I felt the imprint. That feeling would not go away. It felt like someone had, for 3 days, consistently after that vision, someone was holding onto my left hand. I couldn't shake that feeling. I felt so impressionable, like you could almost see the divots. Like that's how, not that you could, but like that's how it felt. The same way I was holding your hand. There was nothing wrong with my blood pressure. There's nothing wrong with my blood circulation. But that's how it felt. Like I ended up getting baptized like that's like within a year after that, because God really woke me up. So I've had lots of demonic dreams over the years or stuff like that, influences, and I pray God does not let me have one tonight. But that's kind of like the worst one that I've ever had, as far as like, this is real. I believe this is real, 100%.
Yeah, if you experience it, it becomes so much more believable, right? Even if you experience a little bit of it, it becomes so much more real. And I think that's actually why people don't experience it very often, right? I don't think that Satan or demons affect many people, because it's much easier to live in a naturalistic society where we're just a bunch of atoms that are stuck together. We're all made out of stardust, and we are born and then we die, and that's it, right? If people live like that their whole lives, well, Satan still wins. There's no incentive for Satan to go around terrorizing everybody. And even yet, there still is people who have these experiences. So I'm curious to know, I wonder how many people who listen have similar experiences, or even maybe experiences that are completely different, but still show supernatural side of things. I know people who have, it seems like, visions, dreams where reality ends up playing out like they have in their dream. A brother from our church, actually a couple brothers from our church had them.
If you're listening to this and you somehow made it this far and you have a spiritual experience or demonic experience or something like supernatural like that you've experienced, send it to me on the Instagram page at ambassadors _Insta, and I will read it on the next podcast. And I'll keep it anonymous. I won't say who said what unless you want me to. I don't care. And I'll read that because that's kind of cool for people to see. Important point here. I don't know what that choking on my own mouth was. Super important part here that me and Justin want to let everyone know. We're not this whole podcast is not as glorifying as evil. It is fun to talk about these creepy, weird stuff because it's kind of like, oh, it's kind of exciting, real, spiritual stuff. But we're not talking about it to like glorify it. We're talking about it to show an example, and not to glorify, but to point out there is
to shine a light on it.
Shine light on a spiritual world that exists, a good versus evil, and that when you're participating in Halloween, it is literally a hub for spiritual activity, and you are participating on the wrong side of it. And so even with my dream and the demonic stuff I've experienced and stuff his dad has, like, we're trying to show that there's real evil stuff exists out there, but we have already won through Jesus Christ our Lord. And he is the most powerful thing that spoke all existence into being and says, I saw Satan fall from heaven as lightning. Jesus cast him out himself. In fact, isn't it funny that it's not even a battle between Jesus and Satan? Michael the Archangel is the one that defeats him and kicks his butt out of heaven into hell. It's like not even Jesus. It's like, I'm going to send my servant and he's going to go and take care of this. Like, can you imagine Jesus does that? Snap of his fingers. Boom.
Yeah. It's so, the spiritual realm is so amazing and so mysterious and so wondrous, which is why I think I'm running out of steam, but I would like to express that you have to be really, really, really careful looking into these things. I often get over overstimulated, I guess you would say. I haven't listened to that Blurry Creatures podcast in a very long time because I just didn't feel like it was that healthy, right? You're listening to all of these stories, all of these accounts, all of these things that could potentially be true, but you don't actually know, right? At the end of the day, who knows? Maybe it's somebody who's schizophrenic and had a vision come in their mind and it wasn't real, right?
What are you trying to say?
So it's not the healthiest thing to always be preoccupied with, but it's also unhealthy to pretend like it doesn't exist at all and to completely deny it. So I think the point of this episode is to say both worlds are real. You might not be able to touch the spiritual realm with your physical hands, but it's touching you and it's touching your heart and it's touching your mind. Don't be ignorant to the fact that the things we do here on this earth affect the spiritual realm, and the things in the spiritual realm affect us, even if you can't literally feel it. So I want to end with the question. I don't want to answer it. Just maybe think about this for any listeners, and then for you, Johnny.
Before you ask the question, I just want to say it's kind of like the end times, where if you get obsessed about this topic,
Yes,
it's like there's a veil over our eyes for a reason. You get so obsessed with eschatology, which is like the study of the end times, basically, then it's not healthy for you because now you're looking for signs, you're looking for wonders, and you're trying to figure out when Jesus is coming back, and everything that Trump does makes him the Antichrist, or everything that Elon Musk does make him the Antichrist. Like then you start getting it to the point where you're doing things that are actually anti-biblical. That Jesus says, don't listen to anyone that says low here, low there. Look, it will be a thief as in the night, but it's still good to research it to a certain a point to where you have an understanding enough to know why the Bible talked about it. The same thing with the spiritual stuff. Like for us in Colorado, it's a little bit more active than maybe it is in other areas. And so for us, it's a little bit more of an exciting topic because it's something that we can actually kind of interact with maybe differently than other people can because of the different environments that we
not
live in.
interacts, just secondhand experience.
I mean, like, no, but I mean, like we meet people who do interact with this, and that's interacting with them, which is interacting with it. And so we shouldn't be obsessing if they listen to this podcast all the time. It should be something that is just like the end times. Like don't obsess over it where it consumes you, but don't be negligent to it. And that's what celebrating Halloween is you're being negligent to something. What's your question?
So real quick, don't be ignorant and don't be obsessed. I think that's the real core of this podcast. So my other question, again, don't want to answer it. It'll take too long, I think, but just to get everybody thinking for this next week, how should Christians regard the dead? How should Christians regard saints, those who have passed on before, who have fallen asleep in the Lord Jesus Christ? And how should we regard those who did not fall asleep, knowing Christ? That's the question I was going to ask. It's a very big topic. It can get really interesting, but
there's something
think about that this week.
Yeah. And something I wanted to say about, I wanted to mention at the end of the podcast here about Instagram. Something I did. I haven't told Justin about this, but I'm sure he'll be fine with it or whatever.
I don't have Instagram, so
yeah,
I deleted it.
You here and there, but no, on the Instagram page, I did a poll asking all of our followers, which we have like hundreds of followers, a lot of people follow on Instagram.
Wow. Cool.
And I did a poll that asked like how many of you people listen regularly, how many of you listen every once in a while, how many of you listen here and there, and how many of you have never listened to a podcast but you just watch clips. And so I got a poll of it, and what I ended up doing was everyone that voted that they watch regularly, I added them to a private story that only our regular listeners can see. And so I'll be posting kind of stuff on there, and I want like them to interact with us more, where those would probably be the type of people that will send in their supernatural experiences, or those are people that we could have as like guests on the show and stuff like that. If they ever are interested in being on the show, or there's a topic they want us to talk about, they can message there, or I can ask like, hey, here's the 2 different topics that me and Justin are thinking about talking about next week. Which one should we talk about? And then they can vote on it. And so we can actually have more interaction with our followers.
That'd be cool.
They get a little more exclusive kind of those people who and I'm going to make this poll regular, like every once in a while, maybe once a week or once a month or something. I'll ask that poll, which one of you guys listen to basically every single episode? Maybe you miss 1 or 2 here. And for those who are consistently listening, one of them being Landon Bozich, I'm just going to say his name again because I mentioned him in the last podcast and he's awesome. I think Luke as well, he also voted on there. The other two people I don't want to mention because there's only 4 people so far that I mentioned, and that they listen to basically every episode. I know there's 5. I know there's some people that vote more. They just might not have been do listen regularly because I can see our statistics. We get a lot more views every single week than just 4 or 5 people. But for those of you who did vote it on there and you've made it this far and you are still listening, you guys can ask questions like, hey, can you guys talk about this topic on the podcast? We're kind of interested. I want to hear what you guys' views are on that. That gives us ideas and things to talk about too. If you want to be on the podcast or you have some views or something you want to express, or there's something specific or a testimony or any stuff like that, that'd be cool because you're the people who are listening to us, the listener who kind of has a shared experience or whatever. And if you have ideas for things to do for the podcast, like, hey, this would be cool if you did this as a creative thing, give us ideas, more exclusive stuff. You get to see the more, if I wasn't special enough,
The more special side to him.
yeah, yes. There's some more polls on there and stuff that we want to ask. Like, hey, me and Justin are thinking about doing this name, this idea, this thought. What do you guys think? So
you get to see some even hotter takes as well.
Even hotter, yeah. If you guys didn't think last week's take was hot enough, that was our the Instagram post that's been most interacted with was the one where I talked about my genius idea.
You put that clip out there? Oh no!
Oh, you haven't seen it? Oh, that's right. You don't have Instagram.
I deleted Instagram.
Oh, bro.
That's
dude, I gotta.
hilarious.
I'm gonna read the statistics to you really quick, Justin, so you can see.
Hurry up! I'm hungry. I need to go eat dinner.
I ate before this already.
Well, I didn't.
Let's see. Dude, it's so funny. It has almost 2,000 views.
What?
37 likes. 27 comments. 10 people have sent it to someone.
Oh my goodness.
And 2 people have saved it. And for those of you listening, I can't see who sent this, who saved it. It doesn't tell me, like, it keeps that stuff private. I just get to see who liked it, like, or who commented, like any other Instagram post. But the rest of it's
hilarious.
1,866 views.
Wow.
28% of them were followers. 71% were non-followers.
That's so funny.
Oh, I'm a genius. Actions, 90% of them were the interactions were followers. Oh, dude, 10 shares. That's our most shared. And the demographic between men and women is equal. 65% in America, 21% in Canada, 4% in Australia, 1% in Serbia, and 1% in Hungary.
The Serbians, you dishonor me.
The biggest age group demographic is 18 to 34. It's so funny. I got to post on YouTube and see how many interactions. Oh, I think it's got another.
Well, thank you all for listening. I have no idea who's listening, but it's kind of cool to hear. So
someone just commented, 20 young soul gonna visit your house to be fed spiritually too, even if it's at least 3 years. Oh, okay. What they originally commented was oh yeah, so Arnold Sable commented, imagine going to Johnny's for a Bible study. LOL, you ain't leaving until ... And then someone finished it by saying, some 20-year-old young soul is going to try to visit the house to be fed spiritually too, even if it's going to take 3 years.
That's awesome.
I'm a genius, and I just need everyone to know that I came up with that plan.
He's also humble. He's humble.
I'm very humble. Actually, matter of fact.
He's also very smart.
I wouldn't go that far, but this plan, it goes deeper. I didn't even tell you guys the whole thing. I just told the kosher side of it. That was the kosher side.
Wrap it up, buddy. Wrap it up. I have to use the restroom so bad.
So
dude.
do
Hurry
I.
up.
I had so much to drink before this, and I meant water. All right, love you guys. Don't celebrate Halloween tomorrow. If you get a chance, maybe say a prayer, worship Jesus Christ. And the last thing I want to mention, there's something significant about time periods. 3 a.m. is, like, for whatever reason, like a heightened spiritual time. October 31st, 3 a.m. is when the most demonic activity is usually happening. That's usually the time everyone waits to do the most, like, evil, disgusting. There are rituals, they happen at 3 a.m., depending what time period, it's different throughout wherever you're at. But 3 a.m. is a demonic like time. Even throughout the year, there's a lot of like creepy stuff supposed to happen around 3 a.m. Supposedly, according to a lot of people who experience it and people who've like dabbled in that stuff, but especially on Halloween, fast and pray if that's something you want to do. Worship God. I don't know, but for those of you who are my friends in Michigan, I will be there this weekend. I'll see you guys this weekend, and I'd love to see you guys. So, those if you're listening to the podcast, you're a fan in Michigan, hit me up. Let's talk about some crazy stuff. Love you guys, Justin.
Have a blessed night, blessed Halloween night that you don't partake in.
And remember, the victories is ours for Jesus Christ our Lord. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with what, Justin?
With good.
We are more than conquerors through Jesus Christ our Lord. Peace.
Amen.